Look on the road.
That's what puts you off, is it? Where you were last.
So tonight is the Champagne League Spout Hill Epic, and everybody's raring to go. I'm advising all the runners to run up it once just to warm up, and the next time up will be easy. But so far there's no takers. So the next time you see this happy throng will be halfway up the killer hill.
George?
Coffee on, please.
The race, just take a brief look at this hill. It goes into 1 in 3 in places. This is about halfway up. You can see the M62 in the background. Still a long way up. And it looks like Eddie Arrowsmith. I hadn't heard he was a renowned hill runner, but he's certainly taken this field apart here with a very strong early run. You can see he's got a good action. Working very well.
Looking good, Eddie.
Looking good. He says it's too steep. And who are we to disagree?
Got Ward and Terry Davis. Shane Page.
Shane Page is battling. He wanted to be in front here. Rob Robinson in there, Terry Davis.
Come on, lad. Go on, Rob.
Now we get the sound effects. No need for the heavy breathing machine today.
Go on, Martin. No pacing allowed. No, Gordon.
You can see the effort these lads are making.
Go on, Ian.
This is a very tough hill. Mark Smith there taking an easy run tonight. And Jim.
See, Jim Dingwell's having a very hard time of it.
What are you doing?
The hill's obviously got the better of him.
Little bit of repartee there from the Scotsman.
Rotten pit.
This is some hill, isn't it? Some hill.
It is. You'll have to edit that.
And as they go on their merry way, we've got quite a rush to get to the other end of this race. You see, there's 2 runners who were frightened of tonight's course.
Don't get me off.
And you can see they've chickened out. They're supposed to be runners, but when it comes to the toughies, they're not with it at all. Our last shot up the hill was Mike Bingham, of course, Springhead Hull Harriers. Very brave. He's carrying a little bit of weight to be going up a hill like that. So some excitement here as the first runner's coming in to view. He's got a clear lead. It is, of course, Eddie Arrowsmith, who took such a strong run up the dreaded Spout Hill, and now he's been rewarded with a very clear win, which makes up for his disappointment in the Cottingham. So the winner, Eddie Arrowsmith.
I might just give you a bit of confidence. Go on. All right.
And you can see the lead he's got. That's a long way back to second place. And it looks like Martin Farrell. He's looking behind as usual, but he's in no danger. He wends his way nice and steadily for a second place. 19:07 on the clock for the winner. Exceptional time. Only 22 seconds outside Steve Rennie's record. 19:49 for Martin Farrell. Brian Wardez had a good run. No, he's very disappointed with his 10 mile at East Hull last week. Andy Holder there, he obviously revels in these tough conditions. Having a very good run tonight. Front of Paul Stockburn and Terry Davis, who's having some fine runs recently. So Paul, how did you enjoy it tonight?
Okay. I've been out of training for about 10 days, so it was a bit hard.
Right.
I took it steady at the start.
Yes.
It paid off.
Good. How did you find the hill?
Hard, I was crawling up it.
Yeah. Here comes Shane Page. He's having a good run. And look who's just coming up there like a train, just behind him. It's George Slater, so he's obviously just getting himself into some sort of form again. Just beating Bernie Childs there. Bernie, of course, is making a reasonable comeback to form. Mike Vickers there, he'll be pleased with that. Tony Slater. Brian Gibson and several other runners there. Too quick for me to remember all name. Peter Chapman now. He'll be quite pleased with tonight's workout.
Don't stand in front of the camera.
Well, we're on, got away. Tommy cut, so far. I'm tired at the end. Well done, Seth.
So with the following win tonight, there's been some good times posted. 20 minutes or thereabouts on this course takes some doing. John Matthews there, Alan Fowley, Ian Adams. Vinnie Percival's finishing very well. First lady again. Presently on very good form. Probably not quite her scene, this kind of surface. And there's Jim. Well, Jim's had a tough run on the Three Rivers run in the 15, so he's obviously trying to find his way again. There's a second lady, Denise Baker. And everybody's talking about the hill. So you can see there's a slight mist you can see on the camera. It's fresher than it was earlier today, but it's still quite warm.
This year.
And so we draw this transmission to a close. The winner was Eddie Arrowsmith in 1907. I think it's probably the second best time recorded on this course. Ahead of that was Steve Rennie's remarkable 1845. But it's been quite a fresh night, quite a good night for some good running. The surface is not too bad, but the hill is just as steep year in, year out. So the next event is at East Hull next Wednesday. It's the 8-mile East Hull League. The next race in this series is from this very spot, and it's the Allerton 9, which is mostly cross country with some road, and of course lots of hills. Here we are again, same place as 2 weeks ago for the Brantingham cross-country run. 8.5 miles of forest paths and hills, and we should have some interesting shots coming up for you. You might well ask what Fish Trades ABC are doing here, but that's Ian Adams. He used to be a handy boxer, now he's a handy runner. In shot now you can see Steve McLeod, Tony Slater, Dave Dale, Phil Slater with his back to us. That's Dr. Rob Robinson, of course. And here we are, this is the Springhead Harriers crowd then. And they're getting quite a crowd now. In the background you can hear the local agricultural machinery. The crowd of runners here anxiously looking at the map. No one's really quite sure where to go. They're calling for more marshals. The undergrowth will be very thick. Shane Page there, I don't know if you can see it or not, but he's got a horrendous sunburn on his shoulders. As you know, Shane never does anything by halves. Alan Fowley there, with his headband, as Andy Ulrich, is to keep his head warm. Or on, I don't know which he said. Not bad, and how are you?
Well, I've been forced to run tonight, really.
Forced?
Yeah, forced. I've only run 10 miles in the last week with my carpentry, it's just on the mend.
Yes.
If I don't run tonight, I only get 40 points in the last Champagne League race, so I've got to run round the course tonight. So I'm not going to go berserk, I don't think.
So, are you doing well in the handicap league?
No, but without running tonight, I won't even get a bottle of wine.
Oh, I see.
In the last race, so
do you really want a bottle of this wine? I mean,
I must be daft, really, but yes.
There goes Mike Bingham then. He started this race. He's the first man off, and he's got 8.5 miles to run. Temperature by the way tonight is 68 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a bit sticky though. So in shot now we have the Raywell Sanatorium, which was opened of course in the days of when TB was rife, and it's been suggested to me that it may have also been used for certain mental disorders. Well, if you look tonight at this motley crew all waiting to take their run over this horrendous course, you might suggest they will have some new clients. I don't know. And still out in front in tonight's race then is Mike Bingham, Springhead Hull Harriers. I think Mike's going to find this a real toughie tonight, as are a few others. Right here. So you can see that Mike is going to have company shortly. Number 71 here coming in second place, and he's running quite a bit more strongly. This is about mile and a half or so into the race, and the bunches have grown a little bit more thick. It's Eric Wilson now leading this next little group. So what we plan to do tonight is show you a little bit of this course. You've seen the beginning and you've seen after 2 miles, and I'm sure we're going to have some interesting pictures to show you over the next few miles.
Come on, Eric. Right here.
And here we are, and you can see Stuart Shawcross there, giving plenty of encouragement. Should be encouraging himself, I think. And as you can see, as they wend their way down towards the top of the scrub. So, we're about 34 minutes into the race now, and we've got a new leader. Askerveld Vets plus Eric Wilson, and you can really hear that they're tramping along. Somehow I don't see them lads being beaten. I can't see anybody else catching them up. Here's the early leader, Mike Bingham. Now the runners are beginning to come together, as predicted by the handicaps. They've all started off at varying intervals. I suppose we're just under halfway into the race now, something like that. And just trying, there's Ted Wilkinson there, just trying to give you an idea of the variable terrain of this particular race. This is the longest race of the series, being about 8.5 miles. I think so. Quite a few runners will say it's quite a lot longer by the time they get to the other end. So in the distance you can just see a snaking their way down the hill, the remains of the 70+ field again. So here you can see them coming up towards the top of Welton Dale. This race is certainly not over yet.
Can't see the orchestra anywhere, Pete.
So in shot now, we still have the same two in front, Eric Wilson and Stan Cooper of Eskerveld. They said they went wrong, and they're still in front.
No one down there. Is there? No. Oh, down here. Come in, very fast. Eric, go on.
And you can see the extent of this lead. I would put it at about 2 to 250 metres. It's Ted Wilkinson in third place. And then there's a big gang of runners, but there's 2.5 miles to go, and it's a fair old gap to make up, because them lads are both running pretty well and are helping each other.
Wilkinson moving up now, and Peter Chapman closely behind, number 33. He's still ladding on.
He's won 1 and 2,
Carter, isn't
Yeah,
it? Mr.
right.
Carter, that's it for me still.
Yeah.
Next one is
Mike Vickers.
Mike Vickers,
Alan Fowley.
Alan Fowley.
Alan's moving up well. He's
Yeah,
got a chance of getting in the first 3.
Yeah. There's Henry.
Pete Mason, Bernie
Yeah,
Child.
Frank Harrison coming up now.
Yeah.
Klaus here, with the headband.
Can you see any likely winners here, Dennis? I mean, you're
Well,
the sort of expert on these
Well, what I
matters.
could see, I think Eric Wilson's on with a good chance.
Do
So
you
he's
think
already
so?
in the front there.
But we're looking for some flyers now. You look
Well, I
a
haven't
bit
seen a
further.
flyer come by yet. There's Sally, first lady.
Yeah. What about Gordon Gibson?
Gordon
He's a flyer,
Gibson,
isn't
yeah. Oh, he's a flyer, but I think Eric's away with it here,
Yeah.
to be honest.
he? Yeah.
I think Eric's going to take some catching. There's Mr. Dale.
David Dale.
Digger
Yeah.
Dale.
Yeah. Well, it really needs a flyer now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I can't even see
I
Shane.
can't see a flyer in this bunch.
No.
Let's catch Eric now.
Ah, we have got one here, haven't we? Paul
Oh,
Peacock.
Yeah. Paul Peacock, yeah.
Yeah. he's got some chance, hasn't he?
Yeah.
2.5 miles to go,
and a chance of getting through in the first 3 or 4.
Yes.
A good chance.
And he'll get encouraged as he passes the runners, won't he? And he'll run it just a bit faster. And I think the only other man with a slight chance in this next group is Dr. Rob Robinson. What would you say to that?
Yeah, Rob's coming up now.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on Denise. This way, this way, this way. This way.
And Dennis there has had to go over and perform his primary task. There goes George Slater. Tony just behind, Brian Ward. And we've got a real flyer there, Eddie Arrowsmith. But he's got an awful task.
Jim Kirkwood. Ian McCoy.
And you can see this race wending its way over the Yorkshire Wolds. They still call them Yorkshire Wolds, I think. Past the Mausoleum on the right-hand side. I don't know whether that's ominous or not. And we shall see you at the end of this race, just while we have the last shot of the back of Shane Page. I've never seen the back of him on video before. And so Eddie Arrowsmith's done it. Eddie's come through. It's an amazing run there. And those two lads came a different way around. I don't know who I still think Eddie got there first, whichever way they went. And then Mike Vickers there coming in 3rd or 5th place. Whether or not those two runners are disqualified, we'll have to wait and see. And 5th or 7th place then is Bernie Childs.
What a good run.
Pete Mason there, there's a bit of a sprint in it. Well, I don't know who's got, oh dear me. Pete goes down there, down at the finish line. I think he'll be all right. Alan Fowley there. This has been a fairly... Gordon Gibson, I thought he'd come through pretty well, and he has done. So what happened then? How did you come and go off course?
Well, they turned us up into this top lot, and the bloke said, you turn right at a house where there's a lake,
yes.
A bit of a pond. We turned right there. There were no more marshals then. We finished up coming right down over here, and I could see this lot, and I said, we're off course.
So, Stan, you should have perhaps won, shouldn't you? I think you had a big enough lead, both of you.
We had 2 minutes lead, hadn't we?
Yeah.
Down at a main road. You were at the top with your camera, and I shouted, there's no marshal. And we ran downhill, and we couldn't see anybody, so we went, come back uphill then.
Because we saw some runners at the top, I thought they were some of the others.
Yeah.
Aye, never mind.
So I don't know whether you were 3rd or what they're going to do.
No idea.
Yeah.
Were there anybody here when we finished? I don't think there were,
I think there was, no. I think they were just coming down, weren't they?
They were just coming down.
So you came together, actually.
Yeah.
I think we came together, yeah.
So, so this looks like a little bit of misjudgment here. Of course, Stan there's from Escafeld, Bradford, and not a local, doesn't have the local knowledge, which obviously helps. So we wrap up this race then, sort of race, whatever you call it, with the news that Eddie Arrowsmith's won it, and we think he's won it, because Stan Kuber and Eric Wilson went off course. And you can see this has been very hard on the legs, it's very hard ground, it's very warm, and I think they know they've all been in a race tonight. The next and last race of the Champagne League is at South Cave. It's a much different event. It's 4.5 miles, all road, and we should see some fast times. And so tonight is 15th of July. It's the very last race, as said, 4.5 miles at South Cave. This series now is drawn to an end, and it's taken in the delights of Hessel, Hull, Beverley, Walkington, Brantingham, Ellerton, and finally tonight. Tonight is a very warm, muggy evening, 77 degrees Fahrenheit, and we'll have to make haste for the start. So, the race is underway, and we'll pick it up a bit further on, I think.
It's a bit dodgy around here.
So, right in the front there we see Jim Dingwall, Martin Farrell, George Baker, Eddie Arrowsmith, I think is in there. Kevin Tolchard. There's quite a group at the front, isn't it? Jim, of course, has not been too well, has he? Just lately. And you might guess that I've got a fairly quiet guest commentator tonight.
I am not going to be drawn. No,
Phil Groves is playing his cards tight to his chest. He says he's not about to be drawn on this race. Although I heard him say that he fancied Eddie. Steady Eddie. And Steady Eddie's there, he's in the front group. I think Mike Lake is just off the pace as well.
Dennis Briggs said that George was going to give it a bit tonight. So
well,
whether he meant that on the road or what?
Well, George is giving it a bit of stick, and he's stringing this group out. The lads survived this race tonight with all this traffic. They'll have done well. It's quite a climb here, and George is testing them, isn't he?
He isn't hanging around.
77 Fahrenheit, very muggy and humid.
3 minutes 34 seconds into the race.
Definitely the warmest race of the series. And so 4.5 minutes into the race, pretty well near a mile, and we've got George there, Martin Farrell and Eddie Arrowsmith, and about 7-8 metres back is Jim Dingwall and Stuart Shellcross. Jim is not, as I said, it hasn't been too well, and he did a 76-minute half marathon a week last Sunday, so he's obviously suffering a little bit. And so the group has come together now, and there's 5 in that group. That 7 or 8 metre, well, has been closed up, although Stuart is maybe 1 or 2 metres off the back and a little vulnerable. Martin Farrell's calling the tune tonight. This is looks like being a hotly contested race. In more ways than one. So it's Martin Farrell then, Eddie Arrowsmith, George Baker, Jim Dingwall, Stuart Shellcross, all in there. Mike Lake and Ian Grew of East Hull next. Yeah. This is a hard pace, I would suggest. The next group is it Richard Cross, Brian Ward, Steve Dobbs, Kevin Tolchard, Steve Rennie. It's his first race back for some time. Andy Ulrich. Andy Holder. Quite a few more lads there. There was Paul Leach heading the next group. Shane Page, of course. And all these lads, these are the regular runners in this.
Come on, let's have that trophy one, Gordon.
And you can see that this is. You can see this race snaking its way right back now. And we probably can just take about another 5 or 6 runners and we shall have to head on.
Nice shot there. And Sweeney.
Of course, any runners who are fairly spare, in other words, don't carry a lot of weight, are an advantage tonight, aren't they, Phil?
Without a doubt, Peter.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
It's the heavier guys who really suffer in this kind of temperature and humidity.
Hey, well? No. Is it true you've had your hair tinted? No, it isn't, Peter.
Oh. Well, that was Phil Dewberry. We thought with his hair being a little bit blonded at the top that he'd had it tinted, but he assures us it's not. It's really his own, all his own colour. And so in shot now is Rob Robinson. Now he's had a few problems. He's had a bad knee, and he's also been under the training guidance of Peter Jarvis. What do you think of the results of this, Phil? Phil's not sure. He's going to pass on that one. He's probably after a free pint afterwards. So, of course, there are a number of characters here, and this man is the most well-known of all. Shane Page burst onto the scene with the Humberside Fun Run, which he won in '84, and has been an ever-present ever since. He's certainly our best-known runner, and he's been in front of more races than most people can lay claim to.
And we'll come on. Nice dropping back, isn't it?
Yeah.
Come on, Andy.
That's so in that shot there, Paul Stockburn, I don't know, he'll get a surprise when he finishes his race because his shorts are on the wrong way round. And probably he'll... So in the shot, that's Eddie Aerosmith, just at the back of that group. And then we have Martin Farrell, George Baker, and Jim, or despite his recent problems, is now out in front, dictating this race. And he's going to make them all work really hard here. After a fairly steady start where it looked like he might not have it in him tonight, they've called a tune and Jim has risen to the occasion.
I think Martin was what pleasantly called bonked.
Yeah, Martin is bonked. And I'll tell you what, Stuart Shellcross is running excellently.
George and Stuart have just overtaken Martin, who looks decidedly bad at the moment.
Yes, I don't think Martin's too good in warm weather, actually. I think I have seen that before.
Yes, we've now beat him in a 10
yeah.
in warm weather. So.
Jim's not totally away.
Yeah, I think George could catch him this time.
But Jim, if you look at Jim's face, he seems to be just suffering a bit. We'll see if we can get a close-up on the Craigie Scotsman's features.
Do you think it's wise at this time of night?
Well, we could. We can put an X-ray cert on it, I suppose. No, Jim is he's definitely concentrating very hard. And it's not fair of us to be too close because it's so warm, and they're even worse on a night like tonight. Yes. 3 positions to remain the same. But Eddie's got no chance of winning now, which I believe was my co-commentator's tip for tonight.
Yes. Really rubbing it in there, aren't you?
Well, obviously we have this side bet. What mine's
Was it bitter?
Something like
Yes,
that, yeah.
I thought it might have been.
So at this shot here, you get a very good idea of the race, and there may be a bit of foreshortening there, but even so, I would say George is not totally out of shot, and he's really piling it on now, trying to get back. And you can see that Stewart and Martin are still battling it out. But we'd have to fancy Martin, but you never know. And there's Eddie there, and just look at this gap to the next group. Between 5th and 6th place, there must be 140, 50 metres, perhaps 200 metres. It's a tremendous gap, isn't it, Mr.
It certainly is, Peter.
Yes.
It certainly is.
And so here we are with about a half a mile to go, and it's only 19:32 on the clock, and Jim has extended his lead. I would say he's got a safe cushion now, a safe cushion in which to build his victory, final victory of this 10-race series. This is a race he has now won for the last 2 consecutive years, so this would make a hat-trick. And so you can really see that George has thrown the towel in now, and Jim's, well, he's doubled that lead now, and he's got about 50 metres, so there's no problem at all. I'm drawing in. So the winner's coming through now, and the time on the clock is 22:54. Jim Dingwall's going to win this quite comfortably, 22:59. And George has closed up considerably there and done an excellent run, 23:05. Eddie's caught both those lads. This is an amazing comeback by Eddie, and he's finishing very strongly in 23:16. Martin Farrell now just holding off Stuart Showcross, 23:20, 23:21, 22. And they're all suffering in this very, very uncomfortable evening.
Well, didn't Eddie do well there?
He certainly did, Phil. And so Mike Lake is coming through now, and they actually were about 300 metres down, just to show the quality of the front runners tonight. So Mike Lake comes through to 24:21, and Richard Cross now is running very well, 24:28. I'll say you get a night like tonight, and you actually sometimes get certain runners run well in all conditions, and other runners suffer on occasions like tonight. Ian Greer now of East Toll, 24:49, been present in many of these races. Brian Ward now, 20:53, and Andy Ulrich, 24:57. Who? Andy Holder now, finishing his typical start. He's done very well. It's another good run by Andy. He's certainly come on the last couple of races. Paul Stockburn there. With time is now 25, 22, 23, and Steve Dobbs there, Bridlington, with his crew cut hairstyle. Steve Rennie there, 25, 32. Quite a reasonable run. He's only been back training a couple of weeks or so. And a lot of these runners are looking quite red in the face and quite hot. Paul Peacock here. It's a night where there doesn't seem to be any air to breathe. So that was 25:52 then for Paul. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to collect my pint.
Kevin.
Paul Leach now, he's just out sprinting. Paul Leach there of Springhead Harris, Phil Leach, and he's out sprinting Kevin Tolchard. Kevin's run 26:18. Brian Matthews and there's Shane Page. Got a fair old kick as Shane, but it doesn't last too long. I keep rechristening our runners here. The John Matthews, not Brian Matthews. I'm thinking of the disc jockey, of course. He's not going to get a record out of this. Anyway, next.
Brian Matthews is dead, isn't he?
I don't know, Phil.
No, he
No.
Well, he's very old.
Yeah. Phil Dewberry there, the spectacular form. I now know where the tints come from. It's the re-entry aspects as he burns down the straight, final straight. There's another man who's done very well just lately, George Slater. 27.16 there, head of that little group. And our secretary now, Brian Gibson, he's suffering here. I don't... Well, this is the last race of the series, and if I want to call them different names, I'm using poetic license tonight and every other kind of license you can think of. And so, Dave McLeod now heads the next group, followed by that's Roger Adams at the back there, and
Ian Adams. First lady. First lady.
First lady.
Hold on. Alistair Burnett.
No. No, you're going to get me in trouble here. This is supposed to be a professional commentary.
I'm sorry.
And so 28.15, second lady, Denise Baker. And as I say, a lot of runners here have really suffered tonight. Jim Kirkwood, 28.30. Stuart Showcross's wife. He'll be pleased with her run. She should be pleased with his. They've both done very well tonight. And well, I suppose 10 races. They started in the depth of winter at Sainsbury's, and they took us through various runs at First Lane, and then we went on to Walkington, followed by Beverley, Brantingham Chase, the cross country at Ellerton, Spout Hill, all this lot included. And this is the final race of the series, and what we'd like to do is to talk to Mr. Peter Jarvis, who does such a great job, not only in organising these events, but in raising cash for the club. As we see Jane Percival come through.
Are we still on camera?
So, and so you can see the official T-shirt for this series, and these can be had from the gentleman in question there.
John Bryson.
And how much are they?
£4.95, Peter.
And are they good value, John?
Excellent value, excellent value. £1 from each T-shirt to club funds as well.
That's excellent, right. Can I now turn to Peter Jarvis, whose little shooting match this is, and this is 10 races series now, and I
no,
think
11.
11 races.
It's best 10 count.
The best 10 count.
Yes.
I've obviously missed one. I felt as though we've got them all in the can, though.
Yeah.
How have you felt it's gone this year?
Very successful. Not such great numbers as last year, but average over 60 for every race, which is very good, really.
I think you feel that that's about enough, don't you?
Well, it's enough to manage, isn't it? You can just cope with it adequately. And it's enjoyable. The main thing is it's a fun thing.
Have you any sort of different races you might be turning in next year? Or?
Yeah, we're going to change. We're going to take a few more out of Costello. One will appear to be popular would be in Little Switzerland, a circuit of Little Switzerland. That's a new Humberside Park, and
how long is a circuit there, Peter?
About 2.5 miles. That's where we'll get a 2.5 mile circuit in.
Oh, that's excellent.
So, right, yeah.
And is that traffic free then?
Yeah, traffic free. It's well, there's barriers at each end. So apart from the car park at the top, the Humberbridge car park. Then,
so, can you tell us, because we're all dying to know, when we can run our first race of next year's series?
22nd of March next year. That will be the Sainsbury's 5K.
Great, we'll be there.
Yeah, you'll be good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you are, take that.
Professional job. By God.
Have we got him in? Yes.
Fantastic.
40.52. So.